You can't see my screen, right?
We haven't.
Yeah, okay, that's good. So we should start. So it's a little bit after 6 o'clock here in Singapore. Welcome everyone to the Graft Challenge Vietnam Showcase, which is featuring some Singapore companies tonight, and really happy to be co-hosting this evening along with Hatch, with our friends at Hatch. And we have Wayne here on the screen. Wayne just arrived back in Singapore after being locked down in some parts of the world. And Wayne, really happy to have you here. I know you guys are busy at the moment with your Innovation Showcase, and you're going to tell us all about that. We have a big, quite a large panel and quite a big agenda tonight. So we have 90 minutes together. Of course, you didn't come to listen to me. We've got some stunning scale-ups and businesses that have got some really deep insights to share, having come out of great accelerators like Hatch. But of course, the focus tonight is on Vietnamese agriculture and what we can do to support agri-food technology adoption in Vietnam. And then tonight, we thought it was great to, given that we've got Hatch as a co-host, to have a focus on fisheries and agriculture, because that's one of the key verticals for the Graft program. My name's Rob Holm. I'm the Asia Director of Beanstalk based here in Singapore. Beanstalk are an innovation agency and ventures group. So we're all about solving challenges in the food system, and we love working with partners like Hatch because they're sitting there. So without further ado, Wayne, I'm going to throw it to you to learn a little bit more about what you're up to at Hatch, and take it away.
Okay, cheers, Rob. Hello, everybody, and I'm really delighted to be part of this webinar today, really supporting innovation in our food systems. For those of you who don't know much about Hatch, we launched the world's first aquaculture focus accelerator back in 2017 in Norway, Bergen in Norway. And since then, we've run four global accelerator programs and expanded our operations from Norway, which is the home of salmon, to Singapore, which was a critical part of our development in terms of 90% of global production of aquaculture is based here in this part of the world. And also the US, from a consumer perspective, we have a base in Hawaii. So from our company's perspective and the investments that we make in early stage aquaculture and alternative seafood companies, we really bring them on a 4-month journey of discovery, taking in pre-COVID, of course, operations, aquaculture operations in Hawaii, in the US, in Europe, and obviously in Singapore here. And we've to date invested in 37 companies. We've raised our first fund back in 2020 of $8.5 million. And now, thankfully, such is the demand for what we're doing, we're raising a much bigger and more significant second fund, because we really do believe that innovation and entrepreneurship, or entrepreneurs involved in aquaculture, is the route to solving many of the problems that exist certainly in aquaculture and the alternative seafood space, from a climate perspective, and also in terms of impact on the environment, with the ultimate objective of producing seafood more sustainably into the future to meet the growing demand for protein. So I think just to mention the Graft Challenge and what we were going to talk about this evening, before you hear from 3 of the companies that are involved have been involved with Hatch. I think it's a really interesting and a much needed initiative where government gets involved with industry and industry connects with innovators. One of the most difficult challenges for any startup out there is to connect with the right people in what are some very big organizations, to be able to hear and get their technology and what their focus areas are and the solutions that they may have, to get the right ear in order for them to grow and scale and so forth. So any initiative for me to do with our food systems, where there are initiatives to connect these cool, talented, creative entrepreneurial people with industry players to solve problems. It's the way that we it's the best way for us to solve the many needed problems that exist in our food systems today. The accelerator runs every year. We're doing one again next year, but right now, my reason for being in Singapore, we're running an innovation studio where we've got 11 companies from Singapore. 7 of them are Singapore based, and others from Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and the Philippines. And it's a real plethora and a collection of different types of technologies. Some you will hear this evening, which I'm delighted that they have an opportunity to share that with you. So I won't go any further apart from to say that, you know, this is a wonderful opportunity and a panel where we can really discuss how we can help these innovators get to their chosen market and customers to solve, as I've said already, the real needed problems or solutions to the real problems that we have out there. So that's it from me, Rob. Thanks.
Perfect. So thanks very much. I just had a quick look online with, it's good to see we've got some external participants joining us tonight. In addition to this Zoom call, we're also, I think, live streaming onto several platforms, and we'll be recording this so we can place this onto and share this around after the event. So what I'd like to do is just go through a little bit of what Graft's about. Let me just get this up for you. Sorry, I'm just having a few technical difficulties here, which is always the way. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So just a little bit about Graft, and it's a innovation challenge program. It's sponsored or funded through Oz for Innovation, Australian Aid, and the Ministry of Science and Technology in Vietnam. And we have a range of regional outreach partners, including Hatch, but also the likes of Plug and Play, QBO, ThinkAg, Trendlines, and others. And so where the Graft Challenge program fits in is typically post-accelerator, and for businesses such as the ones you'll see tonight, which are more focused on raise professional capital, have a great team and a product and a service that's ready to scale into the market. And what we're doing is when we talk about cohorts in Graft, actually what we're doing is one-on-one commercial matching. So we're focused pretty heavily on making sure that these businesses, when they're landing and matching with commercial partners in Vietnam, that they're really hyper-focused on solving some of the big challenges that we have. So I mentioned it's focused across Vietnam. Really, Vietnamese agriculture has a number of different regions.
Rob Stanley here. We only see a red slide. We don't see anything.
Let me just check.
See a red slide. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that. Can you see that?
A small green slide with all the slide 2 numbers and the wording beside it. Are you not present on the correct presentation mode?
Let me just get out again. Sorry about this. Always the way. Present. I'll try it again. What about that? Can you see that?
It's still in like presenter view.
Okay, let me try again. What about that?
Yep.
Nailed it.
All right.
That, guys. It's always something. So as I mentioned, we're sort of having this inflection point in countries like Vietnam. And typically we talk about, domain expertise across ag tech and food tech and fintech and med tech. And we're seeing quite a convergence. So our focus here is more challenge driven. And so when we talk about Challenge Edge scale-up program for agri-tech, we're talking about having worked with industry and finding ways to engage industry and talk about really specific granular challenges across a number of different categories. I'm just going to play a short video here from Mr. Pham. He's quite a large grower based in Vietnam and from various crops, multiple crops including rice, but of course a number of other crops. And let's just see if we can get this to work.
Thực sự thì trong vấn đề sản xuất và trồng trọt trong nông nghiệp thì nó không có liên kết là chặt chẽ với nhau. Trong việc sản xuất thì làm thế nào để chúng ta có thể hiện đại hóa trong vấn đề sản xuất cũng như là áp dụng kỹ thuật số trong vấn đề sản xuất. Cái điều ấy rất là quan trọng. Đồng thời làm thế nào để chúng ta có thể hướng dẫn cho nông dân, hướng dẫn cho các hộ gia đình có thể trồng trọt, có thể canh tác, sản xuất theo hướng phát triển bền vững, và làm thế nào để chúng ta có thể thu được đầu ra một cách an toàn bằng những cái hợp đồng, bằng những kết nối, bằng những cái thỏa thuận, và làm thế nào để nó bền vững cho cả người trồng trọt, bền vững cho cả nông dân và nhà sản xuất, làm thế nào để nó có thể hai bên cùng có lợi. Thì cái đấy là điều rất là quan trọng, và làm thế nào để chúng ta phát triển bền vững cũng rất là quan trọng. Bền vững thì cả hai bên, đó là các nhà sản xuất, phải làm thế nào để cung cấp các dịch vụ tư vấn, cung cấp các dịch vụ làm thế nào để cho nông dân có thể trồng trọt, khai phá, khai ngọn, trồng trọt, sản xuất, chế biến, trồng trọt, sản xuất và thu hoạch theo hướng là phát triển bền vững, duy trì tốt điều kiện sản xuất, cũng như làm thế nào để môi trường được an toàn và phát triển bền vững. Tất cả những cái đấy nó cần rất là nhiều chặt chẽ giữa người nông dân và các hộ gia đình cũng như là các nhà máy, các nhà máy trong vấn đề kết nối với cả hai bên. Cái thứ hai nữa là làm thế nào để đưa ra các dự báo về sản lượng, về nhu cầu, làm thế nào để đưa các vấn đề sản lượng và nhu cầu đối với hội nông dân, cũng như là dự báo về vấn đề thời tiết, làm thế sao để cho cái sản lượng chúng ta trồng trọt ra chúng ta có thể thu được và có thể mua được với giá tốt nhất. Thì cái điều đấy nó là quan trọng rất nhiều trong vấn đề về cung cầu, đó là nhu cầu của thị trường, làm thế nào đánh giá được cái nhu cầu thị trường rất là quan trọng. Đồng thời là chúng ta có thể dự báo được thời tiết, dự báo được tất cả những sự biến đổi về khí hậu trong những vụ hiện tại hoặc những năm tới, để làm thế nào để chúng ta sản xuất nó được an toàn và nó tối đa được cái mùa vụ cũng như là cái sản lượng và nông dân ở trồng. Rất là cảm ơn.
Right. So, but the takeaway after listening to that a couple of times is, not only is production efficiency, a real focus for commercial enterprise in Vietnam, from smallholders all the way through to large enterprise like this one, but increasingly, sustainability and environmental sustainability, and also social enterprise, so are key overlays that are weaving fabric around solutions. And so, we, of course, going back to business school, we always talk about triple bottom line. This is actually really translating into real tangible solutions that are being put into the market, being sought by the market. So we talk about real industry challenges. We spent, like we do in Beanstalk with our clients, we spent quite a lot of time framing up the challenges, engaging with industry through our local partners in Vietnam. And there were really four key areas of focus, including the general cross-sector focus, which is also important, including downstream, away from production efficiency into post-harvest losses and also around consumer engagement. I guess from an ag tech perspective, the ones that kept coming back top of mind to the livestock of course, environmental controls and disease transmission, license to operate in operations. For crops and plantations, contract capabilities and market facing or transparency on pricing and managing climate risk. Of course, Vietnam has a huge exposure to climate risk given the coastline, and that sort of leads us into fisheries and agriculture. It's a massive market. It's a massive operation. It's a quite integrated operation in Vietnam, and typically the same areas of focus or challenge came up around feed conversion ratios and feed cost efficiency, water quality, antibiotics and disease, and just generally in terms of decision support for operations. And I think that's why it's such a great combination of businesses to have a chat tonight to Britannia and Watea and Universal, because there are real life examples of businesses that are helping solve some of those challenges. So the program outline, we opened after this consultation period on the 13th of April, actually quite a short application period of only 1 month. So the applications close next week on the 14th of May. And then we'll be doing assessments through to June. And then from engagement in July and August after announcement of the successful candidates, and then program delivery and a roadshow through to the end of the year. So as I said, it's a little bit less about having an organised cohort and a little bit more about specific one-on-one bespoke action. But having said that, we intend to engage as we go through the program and make sure that through CSIRO and others, and our local partners and the Ministry of Science and Technology and MARD, and also with our local program partners, that we actually keep people in touch. I'm just going to play a little video that hopefully outlines a bit more about Graft and gives you a bit of a flavour of what we're doing.
This is Graft, a first-of-its-kind landing pad program designed specifically to help the world's leading agri-tech entrepreneurs scale up in Vietnam. Graft matches agri-tech entrepreneurs with real opportunities in Vietnam based on challenges identified by Vietnam's agri-food industry. If you have a great solution for Vietnam's crop or animal production, fishing or aquaculture industries that is already generating revenue in Vietnam or anywhere in the world, apply for the Graft Challenge Vietnam 2021 and help us shape the future of agriculture in Vietnam. We give you one-on-one tailored support and business services and connect you to the corporate, advisory and investor relationships that you need to enter and grow quickly in Vietnam, the Mekong region and beyond. The Graft Challenge Vietnam 2021. Apply today.
Okay.
This is Graft.
So I think that's enough for me. What I'm going to do now is call on Wayne to help introduce the three scale-ups or businesses that we're having a chat to tonight. So from Watea we have Evan, from Britannia we have Leo, and from Jeremy, from the Universal Aquaculture we have Jeremy. Wayne, maybe it'd be worthwhile just a very brief intro before we maybe throw to Evan up front.
Sure. I'm really pleased that these guys are going to share with you their technologies. Three very interesting entrepreneurs all doing different things. I think from Evan's perspective, as I said earlier, he joined our accelerator program in Ireland in 2018. And since then, he's grown his team now to 12 people and is doing business with companies all over the world. And obviously, he has a very specific interest in Asia and Vietnam, given the focus of his technology around data analytics and the proficient use of technology on the farm. And that really important challenge for any farmer is to make sure he knows what's happening on his farm and the cost of everything and all the important data they need to increase their bottom line. So I'm looking forward to hearing his updated presentation. And then Leo from Protenga has just joined our innovation studio here in Singapore the day before yesterday. Insect protein and replacement proteins for alternative feeds for all sorts of species is a critical player in sustainability in the aquaculture sector. And then, of course, something really novel in terms of, from a RAS perspective, and producing shrimp indoors, vertical farming here in Singapore. And Jeremy and his team are doing amazing things. Their setup in Singapore is an awesome thing to see. And I'm really looking forward to hearing how Leo and indeed Jeremy talk about their companies today with you. And I'm looking forward to the progress they're going to make over the next 6 weeks on the Innovation Studio. So Evan, this is you're well used to this at this stage in terms of pitching, and take it away. And I'm looking forward to people asking you questions afterwards and maybe get a little bit deeper in terms of how your particular technology can help Vietnamese farmers.
Sure, sounds great. I'll share my screen here. You can see that all right?
Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, my name is Evan Hall. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Wataya Aqua. Again, very excited to have the chance to speak with you folks out there on the web. I'm located here in Canada as home base, but on a normal year, Asia is kind of my family and I's second home. So I hope you're all enjoying the nice warm weather, because it's not particularly nice here in Canada. So aquaculture has what we see as a big problem, but also a big opportunity. It's a very complex business in the sense that you're taking thousands of different raw materials or ingredients and producing, like, quite literally an infinite amount of feed formulations that are being served to. There's maybe 30 main commercially farmed species across the world, but there are literally hundreds of aquaculture species across the world. Now, we have a particular focus on nutrition because about 50% of the carbon footprint of aquaculture is tied up in feed. About 70% of the cost of inputs are feed and ingredient raw materials. So 70% of the cost of a feed is the ingredients used to make the feed, and 50 to 70% of the cost of running a farm is the feed itself. So it's a huge segment of the industry. And yet how it's managed and how R&D is done and how the industry moves forward or doesn't is really managed in a pretty ineffective way. It's a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of pen and paper, both on the farm, in the feed mill, and with ingredient companies, but also in terms of sharing data. Calculating things like your fish in, fish out ratio, which need feed formulation data, raw material data, and farm data. It's just super inefficient and rife with issues that range from fraud to just inability to get some of this information in a timely fashion. So what we do is offer a unique blend of software and services, which I'll talk a little bit more about, particularly our software products. Our first software product and kind of when we met Hatch and what we were focused on was a farm management software. So our AquaOp Farm is really geared towards digitizing the farm. So replacing Excel, replacing pen and paper, but also combining, the digitization and collecting of that data with some pretty powerful analytical tools. So we have growth models for over 30 species currently, feed requirement models as well. So helping farmers get a sense of what should be expected on their farm and what should be fed is kind of our first pathway into helping improve feed conversion ratios. In late 2020, we actually released a second software platform targeted to feed and feed ingredient companies. as we see not a lot of folks are paying much attention to this part of the industry, yet it has a huge impact in terms of reducing carbon emissions, reducing environmental impact, and overall improving the efficiency of the industry. And there are really three kind of core modules within this. We have a raw material map, which is, again, this sort of digital database of your raw materials, all the quality parameters associated with it. It's really geared towards replacing, the half dozen spreadsheets or dozen spreadsheets that are spread across the firm. Our economic valuation tool helps with determining the fair market value of the price of ingredients. And our feed formulation tool is more geared towards ingredient companies being able to run feed formulation scenarios to see how their ingredient fits within, an aquaculture feed for shrimp in Vietnam, for example. And then lastly, our AquaOps solutions is how we provide insights to our clients that we haven't been able to code into software yet. This is, while it's a bespoke service, in a lot of ways, it's kind of the leading edge of where our software is going to go. And more or less anything within the realm of nutrition is kind of within our wheelhouse. And I'll explain a little bit why that is at the end of the presentation. As Wayne mentioned, since 2018, we literally have clients all over the world. Obviously, you can see a core focus of us is in the Americas and Southeast Asia. Our typical clients are farms, they are medium-sized, and on our solutions side of things, enterprise farms, and then feed manufacturers, typically the R&D centers of feed manufacturers or kind of niche formulators working on non-mainstream, for lack of a better word, species, and then finally feed ingredient companies, and we work with some of the largest feed additive feed ingredient companies in the world, as well as some of the newest, earliest stage startups in the feed ingredient space as well. In terms of our business model and revenue model, it's pretty straightforward. So we're on the software side of things, software as a service, and we have a fee for service price that ranges pretty significantly for our AquaOps solutions. But one of the most important things I think to note here is that we firmly believe in making technology accessible to the aquaculture industry, and also allowing smallholder farms or small farms being able to access the kind of tools that a larger farm might already have as well. So we do have a free version of our AquaOps farm software that's geared and tailored specifically to that. In terms of kind of where we've been, again, I mentioned the types of clients or types of target clients we have. Here's kind of a list of some of the folks that we work with. In terms of the impact of being able to estimate, animal growth based on the quality of ingredients that go into a feed formulation, we have a pilot project right now with one particular integrated producer that we estimate the ROI on being able to model that transect being about 20 million-ish annually in terms of improved savings and improved growth. Down in the bottom right, since launching or re-releasing our software products, we've seen pretty significant growth with user uptake as well. So, why do we focus on nutrition, and kind of who are we and why are we doing this? Well, we're unlike many startups in the software space that get into aquaculture. We're actually our expertise is in aquaculture, and we've built software and technology around that. So like our team has almost a century's worth of experience in academia and in industry, and my co-founder, Dr. Dominic Bureau, is one of the foremost experts in aquaculture nutrition, based at the University of Guelph here in Canada as well. Very quickly, this is a bit of a timeline of kind of where we've come from. You can see, Hatch was our first sort of real investor, beyond friends and family. In 2019, we were participated in the Grow Accelerator platform in Singapore. as well as in 2020 through the COVID crisis, we were actually able to triple our revenue from the year prior and launch and re-release a new software product. So Q1, Q2 of 2021 has followed in similar fashion, where we're on pace to double our sales again this year. And Southeast Asia and Vietnam, I just got a note from my team right before I came on here, just closed another sale with an enterprise client in Vietnam, like literally just as we were on this call. So it's obviously a big market and a key area of focus for us. And where are we going with all of this? And then I'll turn it over to Q&A. So our software fits into the ecosystem by linking raw materials, as I mentioned, and the origins, quality, makeup of those materials with all of what goes on within a feed manufacturing environment. So whether that's in a feed manufacturer itself or modeling it for feed ingredient companies so that they have something to come to the table with. Now, where this fits in is that getting feedback from farms and getting data from farms on how feed and feed ingredients are performing is a key missing link within the aquaculture industry. And that's really why we focus on the two parts of our seemingly unrelated software. You can't calculate fish in, fish out ratio without linking feed data and farm data. It just can't effectively be done. So by collecting all this information and having a common kind of language that aquaculture data speaks, we're working on some really cool and interesting stuff within the realm of sustainability, both calculating some of these key commercial metrics, but also being able to forecast waste outputs on farms and feed companies and forecast carbon footprint and things like that. So lastly, as this is, a true pitch, we are fundraising currently. So if anything of what I said is of interest to you out there on the internet, I would love to get in touch, and I look forward to your questions. Thanks.
Perfect, Evan. Thank you very much. If there's any specific questions from anybody, or maybe we can hold it to the end of the three presentations. There's nothing coming up here yet, Evan. Okay.
Answered everybody's questions. Perfect.
Well, see, that's the sign, Evan, of a really good presentation. You cover all the bases, right? But maybe what we'll do, folks, we'll hang back for the questions till after the three presentations, and then we can take it from there. Evan, thanks very much. It's great to see the amazing progress you've made in a very short space of time. Okay.
Thanks, Wayne.
Next up, we'll have Leo. Leo, if you can join us. Leo just applied to the Aquaculture Innovation Studio here with Hatch, which we kicked off on Tuesday, as I said. His area of focus in terms of the applications we received is one which we really feel there's a massive opportunity and a really important piece of technology in terms of the feed inputs into aquaculture. So Leo, if you want to share your screen.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Wayne, for the introduction.
You're welcome.
Set that up. All right. Are you able to see the presentation screen?
Yeah, perfect. Away you go.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks a lot for the invitation. My name is Leo, and I am the founder of Protenga. We are an insect technology and insect nutrition company based in Singapore and Malaysia. And our focus is on the developing of a circular value chain in the food system, from byproduct to animal feed. That's kind of where we are in the segment. We joined the Hatch program for a very specific product development that we have been developing over the last couple weeks that we're very excited about, but that I won't really be touching upon much for this introduction. What I will be sharing is where kind of we come from as Protenga and what our core technology value proposition is through our insect farming technology and the recycling and the upcycling opportunity, valorization opportunity of organic side streams into insect protein as an input for aquaculture. And so with that general introduction, I'd like to start and give you an overview about how we're making insects work for a more sustainable food system. We come off with the from the starting base that what is on our tables and the food that we enjoy actually produces a lot of waste along the value chain from this farm to fork process. At every chain, at every part of that chain, there's some losses, there's some waste produced, and those, whether it's decimals or small percentages, they do add up along the chain and become a quite significant loss to our overall global food system that currently doesn't have a good way to go back into food production. And that's really what we set out to change and provide the solution to, because we feel that that's a very significant contribution towards a more sustainable food system and nurturing our growing population. And so we make insects work by providing this missing link that takes the waste on the one hand and the nutrition demand on the other end and connects those two through our smart insect farm technology that takes agricultural byproducts of all grades, and as long as they contain protein, carbohydrate, nutrients, and turns it into our insect ingredients. And the core products that we have are an insect protein meal, an insect oil, and an insect fertilizer for agriculture and organic farming. And on top of that, we have already developed a portfolio of more specialized products. Now so one of them is in the pet food space. There are others in functional space and then for aquaculture as well. The insect that we are based on is, you probably have heard of that before, it's the black soldier fly that is at the centerpiece of our farming technology, and that we use to concentrate the nutrients available in the feedstocks. What we focus on is a decentralized processing technology that can be applied closer to both producer of waste and consumer of the nutrients. So that is an important step, and especially through COVID, that has been re-emphasized the fragility of global supply chains and the desirability of closer localized food production loops. And so to achieve that, we split the insect value chain into 4 or 5 components: a genetic development component, which we're co-developing with our investor and partner in the UK with Rosneft Technologies; a breeding component; a farming component, which constitutes our main technology offering; and a product manufacturing before it goes into the distribution. The way that we've built our technology is in a hub and spoke system, from kind of a one to many, many to one relationship between the breeding center that produces the offspring and manages different genetic varieties and supplies those in the right quantities, the right health state, and the right readiness to grow for the specific materials available at our decentralized farms, that then supply back into a manufacturing hub for the product manufacturing. The breeding center proposition that we have is is basically that our larvae have a high performance, come at a lower cost into the farm, and as in any livestock farming, the seedling, right, the animal seedlings are an important cost component of the overall product, and the health, right? You have that in shrimp, where you have disease resistant or disease-free broodstock. This is a similar proposition that we have with our breeding center. The smart farm is the core piece of our offering. It's a farming component that it's not a backyard system. It's not a large scale kind of $20 million facility. It's an industrial engineered farm facility at a similar kind of technology level as a cutting edge smart poultry farm you'd see, right, where all main labor is automated, where you have feed and condition and environmental control, batch traceability, very accurate feeding data and growth data across your different cycles, and overall a very high productivity without overkill in capex investment. And yeah, so our proposition there, that it has to be simple, it has to be accessible in terms of the capex for a farming partner. It has to be simple to operate, and it needs to generate quality workplaces, not overly manual labor either. And the last part of our value chain is our manufacturing hub. This is our current pilot facility here in the picture, where we're producing our core products and where we're also doing our product development. The last part, we heard just now the importance of basically farm management systems in the previous pitch, and for the insect farming space, we have developed the iOS, the Insect OS for stable farm operation, which is a software layer that sits on top of our hardware and becomes basically the farm supervisor, and abstracts a lot of the biological know-how of our system into this production system, rather than having to do extensive entomological training for each of the farms that we have and for the operators that we that work at the farms. And so there's environmental control components. We have some machine vision components to track development across the cycle, and yeah, to do tasks that otherwise are hard to do in a manual way, but also provide process guidance and control. And of that basis, of that production platform that we've developed, we have now, as mentioned, initially engaged in tailored product development. And one of the products that we're very excited about and looking to commercialize this year is a shrimp-based feed product, for which we've so far seen very, very interesting first results, and looking to expand that further with more partners, both commercial and academic, for trials, and which I believe is also going to be a very interesting proposition for the Vietnamese market, with plenty of agricultural byproducts available across the entire country, and a very solid shrimp and aqua feed production overall, for which we believe will have an interesting proposition. We are in the current stage not actively raising funds, but preparing for a larger fundraise to scale regionally in the second half of this year. So I'll leave it with that introduction and bring it to the Q&A and see if there are more questions to engage in. Otherwise, pass it on to Jeremy. Thank you very much.
Nice, Leo. Thank you very much. And certainly we're excited about working with you over the next 6 weeks to see where we can take this really important technology. Alternative proteins are an absolute must in meeting some of the challenges in our sector. And I think what you guys have been doing has been really interesting. Okay, we'll probably add those questions to the end, Leo. So we'll we'll plow on. And I'd love to introduce to you to Jeremy, the CEO of Universal Aquaculture. He's got a really interesting model of producing shrimp and very ambitious plans, himself and his team. And I think you'll really get a sense of how passionate he is about land-based production of shrimp. I'll leave it to Jeremy to share with you what he's been up to and what his plans are for the future. If you want to join, Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy. He's probably going for a coffee. Jeremy, can you join us?
Yes. I'm waiting for the host to unmute me.
Ah,
She's keeping me really quiet here.
I see. Well, look, you got the floor.
All right, let's see. I can't stop my video. Okay, let's see whether it can start. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I guess you can see me now, yeah?
Yes, perfect.
Great. Hold on a second. Let me share my screen. Oh, hold on. Yeah, what did I just do this? All right. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay, hi, I'm Jeremy from Universal Aquaculture. I'm one of the founding members of Universal Aquaculture. We have got a team of 11 with a very varied skill set, which I will bring up in the course of the slides. But what we intended to do and what we have done is to have a very different take on how we do aquaculture farming, because I understand that in the world of aquaculture, of course, there's a lot of sea pens out in the sea. You've got coastal farms where there's a lot of water change and certain land-based farms where you have got the RAS systems. But in the case of Singapore, where we are in, being a very small urban center, what we wanted to do was to build a system where we can put in the middle of the city and serve the people within that city, and we don't export or sell any of our food out of a 30-kilometer radius. So that was the concept that we went and we started building this whole business on. The first slide over here, the crisis, I think Wayne has, I took this out of Wayne's playbook. He taught me this yesterday. When you start a presentation, the first thing you do is you got to tell people about a disaster or a crisis. And in the case of us in the world right now, I know we've got a lot of supply chain shocks. We have our oceans basically being overfished, and you've got a lot of disease rampant in outdoor aquaculture. And in the case of Singapore, we have a problem where, because we import a lot of our food, the government here wants us to try to ramp up our nutritional needs and to basically produce 30% of our food by 2030. And so they've given us a bit of support. And so on we go, building the system. So the impacts of outdoor farming, of course, the issues that we look into, and the loss of the habitat threatens biodiversity, polluted waters are discharged into the waterways and nearby lands. And of course, they're crowded and a bit unsanitary, and outdoor farms tend to use a bit more antibiotics and pesticides, and of course, chemicals leached in depending on where you are. We see that prawns is a potential market for us because, as you know, land-based farming is not cheap. But what we have done is we've managed to produce live prawns at a very competitive price, and we are able to market it here in Singapore. Of course, if you look worldwide, the top 5 global shrimp consumption come from USA, Europe, Spain, France, China, and in America, of course, the preference is still shrimps are still the #1 seafood preference in America by volume. So the opportunity we see here is that the world has got heightened food security concerns. A lot of people realize that the where you get your food from is more important nowadays to know whether it's from a sustainable source, whether it is a, a, a product that is produced in a very sustainable way. And of course, in Singapore, we lack a constant supply of shrimps because we have got basically nearly no farms producing prawns in Singapore. We have got a few smaller farms in Singapore producing prawns, but in by and large in Singapore we import most of our food. Um, the Of course, the global shift now from outdoor to indoor farming, what we find is that when we did our business modeling and when we saw the outdoor farms and when we calculated the risk of actually growing anything outdoors, the risk of losing a batch because of bad weather, because of typhoons, because of disease, that to us, because Singaporeans, we always say that we are very kiasu. Kiasu means that we're very afraid of risk and afraid of losing. So when we did our calculations on doing a outdoor farm, especially in Singapore where our labor cost is high, this is very specific to Singapore. Our labor cost is high, our land cost is high. So we need to make sure that whatever we grow, we have the lowest risk possible of losing our crop. And of course, in the case of Singapore, we need to diversify our food sources towards domestic production. So this is just a quick highlight of what we're doing in Singapore and how we intend to grow our business. What we have done is we have developed a totally different system from a RAS system. We call it our hybrid biological recirculating system. I will go into that a bit later, and that is basically the heart of our system, where it treats the water in a very, very cost-effective and very sustainable way. Our aim is to build global food systems of tomorrow and place Singapore, of course, on the map of sustainable seafood. And we'll do that with our overseas expansion, and I will touch on that plan a bit further on. But generally, we don't export our food. So what we do is we'll build farms in every major city in the world, and we just serve that particular area. And our niche market that we are targeting is live and fresh seafood. So if you want the best quality live seafood, best quality fresh seafood, that's our market. We don't go for the frozen and ship it overseas kind of market. We put the farm where you need the food to be grown, and that with it comes a lot of benefits. Of course, locally, we are trying to hit our government's goal of 30 by 30. That's our Singapore 30 by 30 vision of producing 30% of course shrimp, of course 30% of the food by 2030. But what we're going to try to do is hit that target by 2026 instead of 2030. So what we have done is we built our first farm. It's based in a 1,400 square meter warehouse. It's quite interesting because when we get visitors coming, they drive to Tuas, which is the end of Singapore, but they come up to a huge industrial building. It's like a 6-story factory building, and they never expect to see a farm on the 6th floor of a industrial building. So that's what we have done. We've built a farm on a 6th floor of an industrial building in Singapore. And we have a production of approximately 1 ton of vename per week. And our plan is to build our second farm as probably next year with a production of 1 ton per day. So this is how our farm looks. If you look on the right, you can see the scale of it. That one is actually only 1,000 square meters or 10,000 square feet. It is, you can see the little guy, the little man or lady standing there, and that gives you a general scale idea of how tall the farm is. It's it's a total of 12 meters tall. And we in that area, we have got 292 grow out tanks for Vename. So, and we call it Zero Bay. It's Zero is part of our branding, which I'll show you guys in a while. So the hybrid biological recirculation system is basically the heart of our system. What it is a combination of a bit of mechanical filtration, but a lot of biological controls. And what we have done is the founding team has got each of us have got 20 years to 15 years and a lot of experience in building aquaculture systems and working in aquarium industries, working in the aquaculture industry. And we have been friends for well, the other founders about 20 years or so, and since the time we were just out of college, knowing each other and realizing that okay, we have to part our ways when we go to different companies, but we've always had the plan of coming back together and building something very different. And so last year or 2019 was a time where we all got back together and we built this system, the HBRS system. So basically, the HBR system features no water discharge because being in the middle of the city, we can't change the water. And so the concept of the system was to, as far as possible, mimic the sea, mimic the oceans. The ocean doesn't change water when the water goes bad. So when we developed the system, the first thing we did was we looked at the aquaculture, we looked at the fish, we looked at the prawns, we look at what is best for them to grow in, what is the best environment for them to grow in. And soon we realized that yes, they can live in very, very clean water. They can live in perfectly clean water. But if you look in nature, they don't live in perfectly clean water, perfect, without any bacteria, without any algae, without any microbes in the water. So what we did was we designed a system looking at what was best for the prawn and what was best for the fish. And we realized that in the system, we needed a system that basically mimics nature. And that's what we have built in this system. We managed to avoid a lot of the cost of having very expensive big pumps, big backwash filters, a lot of UV treatment, a lot of ozonation, a lot of extra like micro bubble or oxygenation into the water, and yet have a good sustained pH system and bacterial levels to ensure that the water quality is the best possible for the prawns and best possible for the aquaculture that we have to grow in the system. So in our trial, when we built our first system in the beginning of 2020, we were trying actually testing out the system in IBC tanks. We've come a long way since we started testing the system in IBC tanks. And in the tanks, in the IBC tanks, when we first ran the system and we realized that, okay, the system is stable and it works, we had a bit of time to try different types of aquaculture in the system. So we've managed to grow barramundi, the sea bass. We managed to grow jade perch, tilapia, a bit of lobsters, freshwater prawns, and other types of prawns as well in the system. But for commercial reasons, we went with Vename because it's more recognizable. And so, and targeting the live industry and targeting the fresh industry, we found that we are able to have a very good, decent profit margin to sustain our business. So what we have in that 14,000 square feet or 1,400 square meters is we built a hatchery that will continually produce PLs because in our system, we want to be able to harvest on a daily basis. So to be able to do that, we needed to have a hatchery there to make sure that we don't get a situation where all of a sudden we don't have PLs to put in our system. And then because we have our own hatchery, we also built a nursery there where we do it slightly different from the traditional prawn farming, where you take PLs and you throw it into the grow out tank and you just leave it there till time for harvest, and then you harvest. So from the hatchery, when we have PLs, we put it in the nursery. And in our nursery, we let them grow for another 30 days to 45 days, depending on the batch. And what we do is we then select what are the prawns that we want to put in our grow out system to make sure that they grow the fastest and has a chance of being the best quality. So at the nursery side, we filter out, we sort out all those that are less desirable to grow out because feed is expensive and space is expensive in Singapore. So we select what we want to put into our grow out system, which is the one that is 12 meters tall. And then our offtake immediately goes to our customers. And so what you have here is then we are able to have a decreased carbon footprint because basically from our farm, and because we harvest every day, it goes straight to a consumer. Like we sell it directly to the hotels. The hotels can then contract us to produce 30 kg per day for them. And we're able to produce that and deliver it to them. We have minimal disruption because we run our own hatchery, and because we run our own hatchery, we make sure that our production is always there. We always have got very good R&D environment, and we are constantly, again, like what Leo is doing. He's got his IOS, Insect OS. We have got a similar system that we are developing to make sure that we collect all this data and optimize it as we go along. And that is the key of one part of this system. We have very good control biosecurity because the farm is in a totally enclosed environment. It's like we tend to say that this is you don't look at it as a farm anymore. It's more like a prawn factory. You put feed in one end and you get the prawn out the other end. And that is how we look at this farm, a factory where we can get contract manufacturing, contracts done for daily production, how many kg you need. If you need 30, we produce 30. You need 50, we produce 50. And of course, we have got customizable offtake because being in this sort of a system where in 10,000 or 1,000 square meters, you have got 292 tanks, we can basically supply. Although it's Venomay, we've got a total of 8 or 9 SKUs, different sizes of live Venomay, because we realized that the market wants different sizes depending on what they're going to use the prawns for. Like a guy who produces dim sum, they want 12-gram prawn. They want a 14-gram prawn. They don't want a huge 22-gram prawn. But then a Chinese restaurant, when they want to do their drunken prawns, they want a 24-gram prawn. So because of the way we grow our system, we're able to cater to a wide range of sizes that the market can take. The market demand for is there. So in our case, if you look at a supply chain of wild caught prawn versus what we have. The biggest thing is that if you look at a wild caught prawn from the sea, you've got the jetty to go to, the middleman, the depot, and then after that, it has to come to Singapore by sea or air freight. You've got the inspection, you've got the local distributor, and then it finally gets to the consumer. Farm shrimp, because most of it is imported from overseas. In the case of Singapore, the supply chain is just as long. But what we have is we have our farm factory right in the middle of the city, and like one of our investors said that he's from Salt Lake City, and he says that it's great. This idea is great because now I can go to the desert and I can have fresh prawns. And he was saying, in Las Vegas, baby, in Las Vegas, I can have fresh prawns in Las Vegas, live prawns in Las Vegas. That's a big game changer to him. So zero disruption to the supply chain. And we are very carbon light in that sense because we don't have a long supply chain for the prawn or whatever seafood we produce to get to the customer. So this is our team. Well, yeah, that's our founding team. We are a relatively new company. We incorporated this company in 2020 April. So, but of course, before we actually incorporated the company, we did a lot of the groundwork. We have all the different aquaculture enthusiasts and aquaculture professionals from the industry that have come from essentially a few of the better known places in Singapore, like Resorts World, the Sea Aquarium, and the aquarium before that. And we have 2 board members. A third one just joined us. I will introduce our third board member perhaps in time to come because he just basically signed on. Our 2 board members are, of course, Peter Ho. He is quite renowned in Singapore for his engineering expertise. They are basically a company that produces, of course, robotics, defense equipment, and they are also currently building one of the most dense vertical vegetable farms. But the vegetable farm, in this case, they are going for a staple like Asian leafy green like xiao bai cai. And he is building a farm that will output approximately 1,000 tons a year in a space of 35,000 square feet. So
Jeremy,
yes.
if you don't mind, we're going to have to kind of we have to wrap it up because we've still got a question to go. I think you're almost there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, that's it. Aqua OS. Maybe I don't need to explain this too much. It's how we're going to run the entire system. Well, I'll just leave you with a bit of what we do. I wonder whether I can play this. This is a video.
Then we'll get to Q&A. I'm sure people have questions for you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Nice. Thanks, Jeremy. I think, folks, I think what I would like to clarify is that these guys really aren't startups. These are scale-ups, right? They've all raised money, they've all got customers, and they're building revenues. So I think that's quite an important distinction to make. But I think certainly for me, in terms of listening to all the presentations, you can see just really how passionate they are about their chosen area of expertise and their market and their technology. And I think that certainly bodes well. And this is why Hatch is very deeply involved in staying close to innovators, because these are the guys and the girls who are going to solve the challenges ahead. So if we can just wrap that those pitches up. Thank you guys for taking the time to put that together and sharing that with the audience. Maybe if we can quickly go across to Rob, and maybe there are a number of questions from the panel or any questions coming in, and we just get a really productive discussion going. Rob, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thanks, Evan Leo and Jeremy for that. Great insights, and I think we've got several questions coming through. I'm sort of mindful of time, so I want to have as focused discussion as possible. I want to introduce, in addition to Wayne and myself on the panel, a large panel, so we'll moderate that efficiently, is Nhan. She's the director of Vinari, Vietnam, so very experienced, in particular in innovation and systems approach and working with multiple partners. So welcome to Nhan. I'd also like to welcome Quang. Quang is one of our partners for the GRAFT program. He's very experienced, having run the Mekong business initiative back in 2018. And we're really thankful to have the support of Quang, based also in Vietnam. And also joining us is Siang Hee Tan. Siang Hee is the Chief Executive Director of CropLife Asia, based here in Singapore. It's a peak body of the crop protection seeds biotech industry for Asia. And Siang Hee is very, very experienced across all Asian geographies and farming systems. And so really relevant to have on this panel. So what I might do is, if we can share our camera so all of the panel can see one another. And I'm actually going to I'm going to jump straight into Wayne, so you and I can tag team on some of the questions along with the other panelists, but really focusing in on the three pictures we saw from Evan, Leo and Jeremy. I guess we're thinking about Singapore market in particular. I know, Evan, you're much broader than that. You think about scaling and scaling into what's essentially a very, very large fisheries and aquaculture market in Vietnam. What are some of the, maybe we'll start with you, Evan, with Watea and decision support. You talked about feed being such a massive part of input or OPEX for in the aquaculture industry. What are some of the things that you're looking for as you're scaling your business into places like Vietnam? And what are you looking for in commercial partners?
So, excuse me, haven't talked for a while, so I got a frog in my throat. So in terms of what we're looking for, I think Vietnam is interesting for us because we do have a director of business development who is Vietnamese. That's certainly helpful, for sure. Having some local boots on the ground, especially with COVID, we can't hop on a plane and go and visit. So having access to local resources certainly quite helpful for us in Vietnam. In terms of partners, Wayne, I appreciate the distinction that we're kind of no longer a startup. We embrace that mantra too, but we're also not an established firm in many respects. So looking for partners that are willing to, we may not have a perfect fit solution for what they're currently doing, but we're pretty scrappy and pretty capable of innovating and tailoring what we've done to fit their needs. So someone from a corporate standpoint who's willing to work with us would be the biggest thing we'd look for in a partner.
Yeah. And are you working with multiple, input providers? You talked about being sort of you're a bridging or a connector in some ways, aren't you?
Yeah. So that's an important sort of value proposition for us, and how we manage to work with competitors across the ingredient space and feed companies, less so on farms. Farms don't really compete in the same regards as ingredient and feed manufacturers do, is that we're independent. And so our value proposition is providing the best advice to our clients. And we don't really have a skin in the game in the sense of using our software is going to sell X feed company more feed kind of thing. It's more about providing that insight and objective kind of here's what the data tell us.
Yeah. So you'll have local proxies or local contract agreements with suppliers and working out from a quality assurance and supply. You're able to help facilitate that.
So from kind of more an operational standpoint, what we've been able to do successfully, and Vietnam is a place where we're doing this because of our kind of local presences. For companies, in the Americas, for example, a new ingredient company, it's less so for Leo, as they understand, the Asian market probably a lot better than many folks in the Americas here. Everyone focuses on salmon and how to get their product into the salmon industry. Salmon is a big industry, but it's talking about Vietnam and talking about shrimp, it's fractions of the size of what's available in Vietnam, for example. And so we work with local research partners and some of our network in Vietnam to help do R&D trials and help those ingredient companies evaluate a potentially new market that may be vastly larger than what they originally had their eyes on. So that's more where we help with the kind of operational side of things, less so on, contract securing and kind of matchmaking, if that makes sense.
What about some of the nuances, in production systems in Vietnam? The shrimp rice, combined cultivation platforms. What is there something that really stands out that's unique about Vietnam, aside from the fact that there's 92 million population? It's a large population, heavy demand on seafood. Is there something that really stands out for you as a learning?
I mean, I think one of the things that's being, Vietnam is really interesting because there's a lot of, Western representation in terms of feed companies, for example. So lots of like Biomar, Cargill, like everyone from kind of Europe, it has some representation in Vietnam, but there's also a really robust local feed manufacturing and ingredient and obviously farming industry as well. So I think that mix of outside ideas, but catered to this unique context, makes Vietnamese folks pretty interested in trying new ideas. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why we're there and why we found some success in Vietnam, is that people are open to trying new things, which I think is great.
Yeah, I just want to swing over to you, Leo. I know Pratenga, you've been around, I don't know how many years now since you started. Must be.
We are 4.5 years old now. Since
it's almost like you're one of the stalwarts of in black soldier fly, at least in Singapore. Well, Malaysia.
We were the first one in Singapore to really start with a commercial entity.
Yeah, black soldier fly often comes up when we talk about circular economy and food waste and processing waste. There's lots of discussion at the moment about feedstock and the suitability or regulatory barriers perhaps to using food waste as a feedstock, which is ultimately then going into fish feed. What's your take on that? And is that something that you see as you might look towards somewhere like Vietnam to scale? Is that something that the regulatory hurdles on scaling could be a barrier to your business, or is it some insight to that?
Yeah, sure. I think this is a key question for the insect sector, and we at Pratenga we've started always with that purpose of connecting the loop and bringing insects' natural function as a primary recycler and as a starting point of the food chain to our global food production. And from that basis on, we've developed our technology to be feedstock agnostic, in the sense that we haven't developed, let's say, material handling equipment that can only tailor to, let's say, dry materials that are EU compliant. We can do a range of, let's say, hard to handle materials, which food waste materials typically are. Non-pumpable, highly viscous, abrasive, different pH. So from a technological perspective, we're well equipped to do that. And then it's basically comes down to what's available, what does the customer want, and then what's the regulation. And for what our position, disregarding European context for a moment, because that's only our context when we sell to Europe, it is food or feed safety of an insect feed product should be measured by the same standards as feed safety in any other feed product, in any other animal-derived feed product. And there you have microbial standards, you have pathogens that need to be controlled for, you have heavy metal, and you have foreign matter and adulteration. And in most countries, those are standards set. Those need to be complied for if you have fish meal, if you have poultry meal, if you have poultry hydrolysis, spray-dried additives, enzymatically digested products, whatever you have, they do have to comply to those guidelines, and that's also what we hold our products primarily accountable for. Right at the core of it, the product has to be safe, and that is our ambition. And then there is a lot of politics above that, which, depending on who your customer is and what they want to do with the product, and where you want to sell to, become the defining blocks of what the farming system can do. In my opinion, the more pragmatic the discussion is being led, and the more it kind of focuses on what can be achieved, what do the customers need, because if you make the regulation very tight, you basically force insect producers to use materials that otherwise go into pig farming or poultry farming, and the sustainability of that is just massively impacted. So I think the opportunity is in bringing down prices by opening up substrates that are biologically suitable, and having a pragmatic evaluation of it.
There's a question here from Enkit. Welcome, Enkit, of course, of EDB fame and now of UAB. Around this focus for commercial processing waste. I mean, palm oil seems to be a no-brainer on your doorstep, although you're not really wanting to transport that across the countryside to a centralised facility. So would you say your scaling platform is more around decentralised production houses that are based closer to source for the material?
That's a core part of our analysis. Moving low value material by truck through the country is, I think that's just the wrong approach from all perspectives. That's really where sustainability and economics align perfectly. It just doesn't make sense. And so when you do build large scale facilities, you often end up using commodities or materials that have competition and other uses. So there's an opportunity in doing so. What we believe with Protenga is that we can make insect innovation a lot more accessible, and capture a much bigger opportunity by providing a solution that brings it closer to source, and then developing product applications that make the product also valuable at or near the source, rather than sending that insect protein to Norway or to Chile into a salmon.
Yeah, is that essentially where you get your economies of scale for feedstock and the production efficiency, essentially? Yeah, cool. And so the next question to Jeremy. Thanks very much for your presentation. I mean, it's topical, of course. Lots of focus here in Singapore around 30 by 30, and from indoor farming and hybrid greenhouses to aquaculture and cellular ag. I was just thinking about your facility. It seems to be you could actually house that anywhere, right? I mean, you're not really limited geographically as much as maybe capital. And so my question to you would be, where would the next stop be outside of Singapore if you're looking to scale? You've started the company after a long period of research and development. You've landed, a facility that's getting operational in Singapore. Where's the next stop? Is it somewhere like Vietnam?
I think that in the case of our system, we actually supplement also the current farms. Like in Vietnam, for instance, you have your sea-based farms, you've got some coastal farms, and as a hedge to ensure that you still have continuous food supply just in case of a real catastrophe or real disaster, then a totally 100% land-based farm, say in Ho Chi Minh City or in Hanoi or even in Da Nang, although they are quite close to the coast, something located closer to the cities where the areas where the restaurants are, where the freshness of the seafood and closer to where the consumer is. That's where possibly we can go to in Vietnam to supplement currently what is already being produced. As for the rest of the world, I think that interestingly enough, the demographic and the markets that we are looking at are, of course, America, Europe. We could imagine ourselves having a Pacific Venomy farm, live seafood farm in the middle of London, for instance, or maybe in Ireland you get Pacific Venomy, live Pacific Venomy in Ireland. So I'm hopeful to think that the world is our oyster over here, or the world is our prawn.
I'm going to throw to you because I know you've got a number of questions, but the lens that you look through from production in Vietnam and feeding the population. What's your take on what you've seen tonight?
Well, thank you, Rob, for the question. So again, thank you for your invitation. But my answer is going to be more agriculture-based, less of a fish and aquaculture based. Although my previous job had actually, with our colleagues in Canada, I used to run a 20 cage out of Langkawi feeding. My major problem at that time was getting the correct feeding timing and the correct nutrition balance. And I was flying small fries from Taiwan, and we acquired a small fry hatchery in Rayong in Thailand and feeding into our farm in Langkawi. And we were also buying fries out from Indonesia, Bali to come back in. So what you mentioned today is actually solving a lot of the problem from end to end and also footprint. But coming back to the whole Vietnamese discussion is, do you know that Vietnam, in the sense of their catfish, is one of the largest exported commodity to US, and there is a tremendous opportunity in the sense of where you could build from a smaller component. Just like you mentioned about the feed producer, there are a lot of imported feed that you could manufacture. Even coming out from Malaysia, there are a lot of feed manufacturer that has not optimized their nutrition and would further export certain market. That's one component. And I like Jeremy's content is today, not to be surprised, even like the mega cities, who is feeding the mega cities under that short term and a short duration? If you look at China or Beijing, Shanghai, Delhi, Mumbai, each of them are looking at 23 million or 40 million people. And you need the logistics and the current system to be bridging a market gap. And at any point of time today in Beijing itself or in China, 15% are coming from rooftop agriculture in various forms, whether it's vertical and horizontal and also HDB flats. But looking at where China is, they already know where the food security is and the closer to market. That is why under the long-term plan, they have a 100-kilometer circumference delivery system or agriculture system put in place because they know they need to get to market as close as possible. So Vietnam has grown from in terms of affordability of food, the purchasing power, and not only Vietnam, both Thailand, Vietnam has also significant, even Indonesia has upscaled the affordability for sustainable food and the appetite for environmental concern, etc. So I see a tremendous opportunity for us to build into that segue into that domain. So Rob, I hope I answered some of your question on the potential basis and what we see. Thank you.
Seems like it's a really hyper-local situation. I mean, Wayne, you've got a lens, global lens, for trends in markets and any of the application of innovation technology. Are you seeing also, what Xiang He mentioned in China, places like China, with this sort of hyper-local ring fence hub concept?
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think from our perspective, when we're looking at global aquaculture, this region and Singapore and surrounding countries is where the majority of the production is. Our startup companies and companies we invest in, is really critical that they get to understand those markets, the challenges in those markets, all the way down to the farmer. There's a very good reason why we bring companies across 3 continents, and is to go and talk to farmers and build back from there, and to really understand, on the ground, the challenges of producing the whatever species they're producing, be it that they're focusing on genetics, or they're focusing on alternative proteins, or they're focusing on water quality measurements, whatever that may be. It all stems back from there. And, every time I come back to this part of the world, you can just see it. Everybody's talking about, aquaculture and the alternative space. It's a, this conversation is going on everywhere around it. And I think Singapore's agenda around 30 for 30, Jeremy, you mentioned it earlier. I mean, that's a wonderful initiative. And I think even with the Graft Challenge Vietnam and the Vietnamese government looking to, provide ways and platforms, and this is kind of really what I want to wrap up with today is, I think it's critical that scale-ups and startups like who have been presenting this evening, get to talk to people like Xiang He and others, and large companies, to get together and find out ways to work together. And because it's really difficult, and we see it all the time from a startup perspective. It was mentioned yesterday on a mentor session. It's like the elephant and the flea. How do you get to meet that elephant, and what part of the elephant can you push the button to make it do certain things, right? And I think just opportunities like this and the Graft Challenge and our work with Enterprise Singapore, connecting these innovators with industry, is a critical part of what should be happening, not only in Vietnam or Singapore, but really anywhere where there's an opportunity to feed the future generations.
And we talked about that yesterday too, Wayne, did we, how Singapore is a landing hub, really an emerging agri-food tech hub for Southeast Asia. But
yeah,
you talked about, this opportunity for the likes of these guys to pressure test, with a demographic and, in a relatively open, market system, to then be able to jump off into places like Vietnam. Is it how you see it?
For sure. I mean, we really see, where we are as a gateway to, everything is happening here.
Yeah.
I mean, where Evan is, no more than a week or 2 into the accelerator, he was looking at who can I connect with in Asia, who can I connect with in, and it's really important that we understand that, but also understanding the consumer markets. Even just observing, I live in Ireland, I'm from Ireland, but when I come here at lunchtime, everybody's eating seafood.
Yeah.
Right? It's incredible. And, unlike other parts of the world, they're catching up. And certainly Europe, there's more and more seafood being consumed. You take the USA, they import 80% of their seafood. Europe, around 60 to 70% of the seafood they import. They don't produce it. And yet here, this is where the hub of it is. And, I think for any aquaculture or alternative seafood-based, plant-based company looking to, really take their business to the next level, they need to get on conversations like this and talk to people like are on this panel and listening in the audience, if they're going to make a success of what they're doing.
And I'd just like to throw to Jan in a minute from Inari, because she's on the ground there and she's seeing this. But one thing that struck me, which is why we've got guys like Xiang He, because they have a network across Asia. They have an established network and they have people on the ground that you can tap into, or the chambers of commerce or Grow Asia. These are established networks. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, and it's just a matter of actually asking people. And so, I think that's why these panels are so great. Jan, are you there? Can you shed some light on this? Are we talking rubbish, or does it resonate with you and what you're seeing? And where do you see the opportunities for the three businesses that you've? I know there's a lot of chatter going on behind the scenes here. The three businesses that you've seen tonight.
So first of all, thank you very much, Murphy and Hatch, for great connection today. And so happy to learning about very interesting solution from Leo Botanger, from Ivan with Aqua, and from Jeremy Universal Aquaculture. And I also want to congratulations to all of you, because today our industry working group, Mr. Yang from Mingfu Group, have joined with us and show he's very interested in all of the solutions today. So I would like to share that Mingfu Group is a leading agribusiness in the shrimp industry in Vietnam, and they are also some of the leading innovators in the industry. So I think that's very good channel, very good signal from the Vietnam market. And second thing I would like to share with you that if you have the Vietnam market entry in the next 10 years, I think that will be very smart decision for all of you, because in March of this year, our Prime Minister have issued a strategy to develop the fishery sector to 2030 and vision to 2045. And according to the decision, the aquaculture will develop double time compared to this year. And we also would very interested in the solution you present today, because that's very fit with the condition and the expectation from the fishery industry in Vietnam. Because in the next 10 years, Vietnam would like to looking for the innovative solution and the innovative method for circulating the production of aquaculture product to meet with the international standard and requirement market. So both from the private sector and from the regulation, I think all of your solution today is very useful for us, and so welcome on board with us. And our team in Vietnam will try our best to support you for do some research, do some pilot, and we do hope that you will have a big fruitful collaboration in Vietnam. Thank you very much for all your consideration and sharing today.
Thanks, Nan. We have one question here also from Menkiet. If we think about the opportunity to increase production capacity in the seafood fisheries aquaculture sector, obviously there's a huge domestic demand in Vietnam. But how do you see, the potential then for exports from Vietnam to China? Is China increasing in demand for production from Vietnam?
Oh, thank you for the interesting question. And we, from our view from the domestic market, still very huge for you, because now in the strategy, we also looking for new exporting market. But for about 100 million population of Vietnam now, we are still now looking for new product and high quality product from aquaculture for our consuming. So I think with your support in the innovating the technology, meeting with the international standard, and also increasing the quality, reducing the cost. I think exporting markets is still here, and we learned from the aquaculture company. They say that even in the COVID-19 pandemic, the demand for the aquaculture from Vietnam is still rising. And another thing we would like to share with you that the domestic market is still very potential for the innovation and for the innovative product too.
Well, I can imagine all of the businesses for Universal on the supply side, and from Britannia on the feed side, and for Witea on the decision support, sort of linkage, bridging on suppliers, all really key, in particular in a COVID world. Jiang He and I wrote a little paper on this around the fragility of supply chains under COVID, and I think if you think about sovereignty and risk mitigation around food supply, only for Singapore, also for places like three businesses you've seen tonight, and perhaps for the country.
But I think
one key
selling point here is
perfect.
I think one key selling point is to must try to help the Vietnamese aquaculture company to reduce the production cost.
Yeah,
it's very important.
Yeah, perfect. I'm conscious of time. We've run over. I want to try and respect that. Perhaps Wayne, or perhaps if we go to the three panelists, if you want to throw out, some final thoughts on your business and on your technology and the application for Vietnam. Maybe just a 1 minute snapshot. Evan, perhaps we start with you.
Sure. I mean, I'll mostly say for the folks that are listening in, if you haven't been convinced by this panel and from some of the folks who have talked about the opportunities in Vietnam with respect to aquaculture, I think you have my contact info in the thing. I'm happy to chat more about our experience in working in Vietnam and Southeast Asia and being a Canadian technology company and what some of the challenges, but ultimately the opportunities have been. I'm always more than happy to chat about that, because I agree wholeheartedly with what Wayne said and what's being discussed here, that Singapore and Southeast Asia are really a hub for the aquaculture industry. Like, by far, that's where the action is.
Yeah, cool, awesome. Leo.
Yeah, thank you very much again for the invitation and for having the opportunity to share in front of this audience. I can only say that the support and the programs that are being offered are a real opportunity. We're very fortunate to benefit from that through the Hatch program now, with our technology and feed products. We believe that we have a really interesting offering to make for the Vietnamese market as well, to provide better cost and better performance and better sustainability for the aquaculture sector, and in particular for shrimp. So we're looking forward to connect with parties that are interested in insect bioconversion and derived products for Vietnam and Southeast Asia. So with that, thank you very much again for the invitation, and thanks also to the co-panelists for the really interesting presentations as well. All right, have a good evening.
Jeremy.
Yeah. Yes, thanks for the invitation as well. And this has been very enlightening. Every time I think of Vietnam, I miss traveling there because of COVID. I was supposed to be in Hanoi in 2020 April, but unfortunately that trip got scuttled because we went into lockdown. So every time I think of Vietnam, I think of the food, and in Ho Chi Minh, food's fantastic. The pho and the Vietnamese spring rolls. And what I imagine is that if I could have a very interesting farm in the middle of Ho Chi Minh or Hanoi, fresh live seafood, fresh live prawns, that would be really fantastic. And I see that the thriving aquaculture industry in Vietnam and one of the powerhouses, and I really see the Vietnamese government's vision as well, to transform their sector, to make it an even bigger player on the world stage, and I hope I can be a part of that.
Perfect. Siang Hei, every time I talk to you, I learn something more that you've done in your previous life. From now I know that you're previously a fish farmer, but you know, the experience that you bring and the lens that you bring, I think, and also the network is really valuable in Vietnam and bridging. Yeah, what's your takeaway on, in particular, the opportunities in Vietnam? Maybe not just for aquaculture, but across the sector.
But to me, Vietnam is a whole lot of opportunity, because today, for fruits itself, one of the pomelo, one of the largest supply comes from Vietnam. The orange skin pomelo, it's all managed by a big farm. You look at whether it's coffee, tea, pepper, and you have a lot of exotic food right now being produced for China market. Because you posed just now a question on China market. Yes, it is go-to market, is very close. And not to forget the vertical for vegetables. Just now, Jeremy spoke about vertical farm. There are a lot of people right now producing vegetables, not only for domestic market, but also for export. So the Vietnamese farmers are very entrepreneurial and very technology driven, and they're well receptive of advances. And again, you look at the hybrid of mobile phone, etc. So I think there's a whole lot of opportunity for your team to really do some sensing there on the ground and map out for potential stakeholders. And again, the economy is growing. Apart from COVID, the economy all are shrinking, but Vietnam was extremely good and very, very robust. Thank you.
Perfect. Wayne, as a co-host, and I know you're very busy at the moment with the innovation showcase here in Singapore, but I've been really impressed. Of course, I know these guys, and with the progress even in the last 12 months, despite COVID, it's been amazing. So, how would you see it shaping up?
Well, I think the topic here is a lot of it is about Vietnam, and certainly Hatch sees Vietnam as a very important market as an investor, right? We want to assist our companies that we invest in to access markets where there's scalability and opportunity. A number of our own Hatch team has gone into Vietnam and done research of the landscape and the opportunities that are there, and understood the challenges with farmers there. So when we talk to, be it Evan or Leo or Jeremy or any of our other portfolio companies about getting access and understanding the markets and the cultural differences in each location, this information is really, really important, and we spend quite a bit of time on looking at Vietnam as an opportunity for our companies, and we'll continue to do that because the potential there is enormous. We haven't even scratched the surface there in terms of from an agriculture perspective, and an innovation and technology opportunity too. It is enormous in this whole region, but Vietnam in particular, from a shrimp perspective, is we haven't even scratched the surface with it, and I'm really looking forward to the time ahead and the growth opportunities there.
Perfect. So I think with that closeout, I'd really like to acknowledge all of the panelists, including our co-hosts, Wayne and the team at Hatch, to Evan at Wattaya, and Leo at Pratanga, and Jeremy at Universal. Thank you so much for joining, to Siang Hei and Jan for being excellent panelists. I'd also like to recognise our partners in Vietnam, CIS Vietnam, VITA, and MBI Innovation. And also just a shout out, what we're trying to do, just to reiterate, is join commercial businesses with challenges with the businesses like what you've seen tonight. So if you're watching this on replay or on stream, you have the opportunity and you have a business that's scaling and able to address some of the challenges that we've identified in graft in Vietnam, jump online, ask us some questions, get your application by the 14th of this month, which is only less than a week away. We'd love to have you, and I know the guys in Vietnam would love to engage with you. But with that, we've gone half an hour over time, and I'd like to say good night and thank you all again very much for joining. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks so much, everybody. It was great. Thank
Thank
you.
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.